Very strange. Oh, now it says it's live, but oh, there. Okay, now I can see a little bit. Thank you. So, all right, how we doing here? So, thank you. I'm up and about. I've been doing a lot of things left-handed. I'm actually doing a lot more stuff right-handed. Chris was saying you were impressive. We got to witness your first three turkeys left-handed. Chris runs a pro shop over at Fiesta where I was practicing, and I actually bowled extremely well. I shot like 560 for 3 games, which is ridiculous, beyond ridiculous. I really was not expecting that at all. So you know, we'll see what happens tomorrow night in league. League, a little more pressure and stuff, and the pace is way slower. I don't know if that's gonna be a good thing or a bad thing. It's so it is what it is. So I've got a few questions. Let me see if I can dig them up. All righty, where are they? Okay, let me throw these questions over here so I can see them a little better. All right. So somebody asked, "You're not bowling the Thursday night league anymore." Well, I went there last week to sub, but nobody needed me. And then finally, I did end up joining a team. They have a roster team. You can't just be a sub in that league. So um, Carol Teal, unfortunately, has got a hip injury, and I bowled with her in the scratch league last year. And hopefully in January we can team up together and continue bowling that scratch league. But for right now, we're both out of commission, at least for me, right-handed. So I'm going to try left-handed. And I told him I'm not expecting a whole lot, but I'm saying hopefully I can improve. So I think on a handicap league I might be a good buy, but who knows? I might go out and shoot something stupid the first set and have a really high average and can't figure that out the rest of the year. Thoughts on the USBC? I know you have a few. um, I don't agree with the urethane rules. I don't agree with PBA's urethane rule. There's a hardness. They've got a hardness rule. Making a rule specifically for a type of bowling ball to me is just wrong. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, if you want to, you know, say that that type of material is bad, but I mean, you really need to come up with a really good reason for it. I don't. I think the reasons they have are just not sufficient. That's my personal opinion. They've got a hard, like I said, they have a hardness rule. If they would just use it, I don't think there'd be a problem. When they were having these balls that were theoretically getting really, really soft, and guys are using them, if they check them at a tournament and guys are using them, used to be the ball get thrown out the second time, the player gets thrown out. So that's kind of a deterrent, and I don't understand why that's not a simple answer. But um, I'm not in charge. When did you realize that you had a true talent for bowling? Um, well, I was a champion horseshoe player when I was very young. I was junior champion. Won my first junior championship when I was 11. I won the men's championship when I was 18. Won it again when I was 20. And when I was 18, I'd actually got into bowling again. I bowled 1 year when I was like 11, and then really didn't bowl again until I was a senior in high school. And then it was really when I was turning 19 that I really got into bowling. And about halfway through the season, they started making the lanes easy, and I started shooting 600 every week. And I'm like, wow, this is I knew I had a good underhand arm swing, but how it translates, you don't know. Um, and the next year I started bowling some local scratch turn. Well, I started bowling some local scratch tournaments and started bowling some regional tournaments. They used to have a PCB, Professional Coast Bowlers Association, which was in Southern California. I bowled those. Good tournaments, good players, and that's I just kind of got better and bowled more, and more I bowled, the better I got. And then I decided, now I'm thinking, well, maybe I could do this, and I started making some money in local tournaments, and actually saved up money from my horse, which sounds kind of funny because there's not much money in horseshoes. But back then I used to win all the horseshoe tournaments that there were, and there was a few tournaments with a little bit of money in it. and I had an endorsement with a horseshoe company. The gentleman gave me a nice deal. Unfortunately, years later, his sons kind of took it away, but that's what happened anyway. Um, so I actually saved up enough money, and when I got through with my college, I went out and bowled on tour full time. I actually bowled 3 tournaments in '81, but I was still going to college. In '82, I bowled 5 tournaments, and I actually made the finals in 2 of them. And then in '83, I went out full time. So that's kind of how that happened. How old was I when I hit my first 300 game? I think I was 20, or maybe 19. No, it must have been 19, because it was shortly. Um, yeah, I think it would have been about 19, maybe. I might have been 20, but it was 19 or 20. Um, 1979. Yeah, so I'd have been 19. I don't remember the exact dates, but it was sometime in the spring, over at Columbia Bowl in Duarte, California. They had a scratch league on a Monday night or something. And I used to go over there and sub, and they had some pretty good scores over there. And I think one guy was averaging, a couple guys were averaging in the middle 230s. um, how is the shoulder rehab coming? It's not too bad. It's not perfect. Obviously, I got a ways to go, but I can shave. I can brush my teeth. I can't quite reach top of my head. I'm hoping that one of these days I'll be able to go like that. So raising my arm is still a little challenging, but I see tiny bits of improvement, every couple of days. So that's good. But it's the doctor said it was going to be 6 months, and I got another 3.5 months for that. So we'll see how that goes. Do you think Jason Belmonte will surpass your 47 PBA national titles? I kind of doubt it. And no offense to Jason, Jason's a extremely great bowler. Don't get me wrong; he's got different variables than I did. He lives in Australia. I lived in the States. I could travel. I didn't have a family. He's got 4 kids. So for him, he's got some other things going on, and I don't know. You know, it's what his goal is. If his goal is to get to 47 titles, he probably would do it. Can't take anything away from him. He's a very talented bowler. He's dominated the tour for the last how many years? 10, 15 years. So you can't really blame him. EJ Tackett's another one. The other thing is injuries. You know, EJ's not a big guy. And what he does to a bowling ball is very impressive. For his size, it's amazing. Whether or not but it's that's to be seen. The other thing is how driven they are to continue bowling. Some guys kind of lose that drive a little bit, of wanting to compete. And if they're not going to, if they feel like Earl Anthony didn't didn't want to continue bowling on tour because he didn't want to not be number one. And so when he retired at number one basically, and then just didn't bowl much anymore. So everybody has a different mentality. And when Earl retired, he had the most titles. And somebody had 50 titles, I'm sure he would have continued bowling for a few more years. But he had the most titles by quite a few, and so it was not a big deal for him. It's like, well, when he retired, he was the number one guy, and I, I consider him like the best ever all time because he was Player of the Year 6 times in 14-year period, and Jason's like right on that same curve. So, and the other thing is they don't have as many tournaments as we did way back when. We had a few more entries in our tournaments, but the top players are still the top players. When you did not win a title in about 25 consecutive TV appearances in the late '80s and early '90s, did the frustration ever cause you to consider leaving the tour? Um, that was a very frustrating time. I bowled very well for quite a few years, and it was just just like this thing happened, that thing happened, this thing. It was, I think I have the record for the most TV finals in a row, without a title, not necessarily consecutive week on week on week, but, over like a 4.5 year period or something like that, where I made a lot of TV shows and just didn't win. And then all of a sudden I started winning a lot. So, but I knew I was bowling well, and I figured, just going to keep grinding away, and, hopefully things will happen. And they finally did. So. What would be a good thing to practice on staying down and not pulling up on the shot? Um, that's a good question. I think a lot of people do rear up. I kind of rear up a little tiny bit. Staying down, obviously, I think helps your your leverage and everything. But there are some players who do lift up, with their body and stuff at the foul line. Um, but most of the guys, they stay down pretty good. I would just concentrate on staying down. I mean, it sounds awfully simple, but those kinds of things, getting that really good knee bend. Um, Johnny Petraglia told me that when he had a lesson with, oh god, this is terrible. um, when he had his first lesson, the guy said, "When you throw the ball, hit your other knee, put your other knee on the ground, and that's going to get you a good knee bend." And that's what that was his 5-minute lesson. And he said, "You do that for the next week. Come back and then do another thing." And Johnny Petraglia is like 78 years old, got a fabulous knee bend these days, and he's 78. That's not bad. I hope I can still bowl when I'm 78. So, all right, let's see. Let's get to some of the. Those were some of the previous questions. Uh, all right, let's see. All right. Really impressed that you can bowl with right and left-handed, but you can do it pitching horseshoes, so why not bowling? Well, thanks, Doris. Doris is a horseshoe pitcher. She's a very good horseshoe pitcher from Texas. She's been in the championship ladies class the last few years. Uh, I I learned how to play left-handed on horseshoes when I was 13. I broke my finger the day before the tournament. I still played in the tournament with I had these two fingers splinted up together, and so I basically held the shoe with these two fingers and my thumb, which is really kind of odd. It was a way I managed to figure out how to hold the horseshoe. I ended up not winning it naturally because I was just too different. Had you given me a week or two, I might have been able to be a lot more competitive, but as it was, I was pretty competitive, but nothing compared to what I was because I was pitching really, 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 really well at the time. So I'd kind of fooled around playing left-handed for the next few weeks, and then when I was 18, I broke my wrist. Well, now I can't even come close to pitching horseshoes with my right hand because it's in a cast. So I actually pitched the left-handed, and I said, well, let me go to a horseshoe tournament. My very first tournament playing the men's distance at was 47%, and that was when I was 18 years old. But I was 85% right-handed, so that's a big difference, and it was never a big deal. And then over the years, unfortunately, my pitching just became worse and worse, and I had a couple tournaments at the World Tournament where I averaged under 70%, and I just was so frustrated. I'm like, I was about 55% left-handed. I thought, if I pitch all the time left-handed, I might be able to get up to 65%, and I think I'd be a little happier, because I get really, really, really frustrated when I don't do well right-handed, because I used to be really, 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 really good. I mean, used to have bad games for me were 80%, and now I'm averaging 70% and stuff. And that was not a good combination. So I started playing left-handed. The next year, I actually averaged over 70% for 2 years in a row at the World Tournament. I actually finished second, but part of that was because a bunch of other top players weren't there. But I did manage to finish second somehow, and um, so that's kind of how that is. And nowadays, I actually compete over the next how many years I was. Some years I was left-handed, some years I was right-handed. I get frustrated, I'd do the other. I'd get frustrated, do the other. Get frustrated, do the other. A couple of years. Last year, I tried playing right-handed, and I had two of my worst tournaments I've ever had in my life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start playing left-handed all the time. And I don't do great all the time left-handed, but I have moments where I do know what I'm doing. So, um, and the bowling part is, it's similar underhand arm swing, and I think that's how I got to be as good right-handed from playing horseshoes because I didn't grow up in a bowling center. So I go looking good and sounding good with a new mic. Thanks. It's a matter of turning it on. Um, it's funny. I was testing my mic last night on my tablets and my iPads, and for some reason, the program that it uses on Facebook doesn't the sound doesn't come on, and I can't figure it out. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to record the videos and then put them on later. So because I actually did one a couple days ago, and I was looking at it and like, why is this? It's doing the same thing, and I know the mic because I can see you can see the little green light on the microphone, and there's a little light here on the adapter thing. If that's not plugged in, that the screen light goes off, it flashes. So I know that it's connected, and it was connected, but it wasn't working properly. So obviously something to do with that little app or whatever that works with Facebook just wasn't working. So all right, let's see who else we got. Always impressed. Whoops. Oh, where do we go? My favorite bowler of all time. Well, thanks, Miss Goomer. Um, you can do it all. Two-handed, three-handed with a plastic ball. Well, I was on a house shot. That's why. uh, what was your first I guess he said PBA win. My first PBA win was a regional tournament in Reno, Nevada, and it was like 1983. So it was it was kind of, I think it was in the summertime. Actually, it was in Sparks, Nevada, not Reno. And you know, I'd had a bunch of seconds up to that point. In fact, I probably have more seconds in regional tournaments than I have at firsts, believe it or not. And I've got a lot of firsts. um, and it was funny because I beat Larry Lobb in the finals, and Larry Lobb was a great bowler from the tour at that time, and he was complaining because I was hooking the ball so much. And people nowadays would laugh at that because they're like me hooking the ball. I'm like, well, compared to some guys back then, I did hook the ball. Compared to the guys today, no, I do not hook the ball. So let's see, bouncing out all the time. That should say. I have no idea what that means. Um, Good to see you back in action again. So when do you start bowling? Well, I've actually started bowling left-handed. I am not going to bowl right-handed for probably a few months, but I just it's tomorrow in league was going to be the first time in league, so we'll see. See above. I got no idea what you're talking about. Oh, okay. I missed that one. I'm sorry. Went right by a bunch. Okay, so is horseshoes easier with soft clay in the pits? In your videos, it looks like soft clay or mud or something. When I pitch with muddy pits, I do much better, but with dry sand, I can't stop it from blind comp. I guess bouncing off all the time. Yeah, most tournament players prefer a soft clay. The idea, basically where you throw the shoe is where you want it to finish. In sand or dirt, the shoes move around a lot. It also gets on the sidewalk, so you have to keep. For me, that's the biggest issue with the sand and stuff. It gets on the sidewalk. I got to clean that off all the time because it's getting on my walkway where I want to stand and where I want to step and stuff. That's really irritating. Um, but sand's a lot easier to take care of. Clay takes a lot more care. You have to water a little bit. You have to use a shovel and turn it over. And unfortunately, most people that I compete with, even quote top players, um, they only like to turn it like about this deep. I like to turn it about that deep. Um, get that water underneath and kind of mix the clay up really nice. Theoretically, the best perfect clay would be clay you could take your finger, stick it in, and then pull it out, and you got no clay on your finger. Now, that's not going to happen, but that would be perfect ideal. Basically, think of like dough for making bread or something like that. Something that's really soft like that would be almost perfect as long as it doesn't stick to the shoe. That's part of the problem because to keep it soft, you need to keep it moist, and if it's too moist, it starts sticking. So it's one of those kind of strange things you're always um, kind of dealing with. And some people don't like it sticky, so they like to keep it hard. Me, I'd rather have it a little on the sticky side, and I can wipe the shoe off. I don't like the shoes to bounce. Yes. So okay. Where am I? Are you? Whoops. Oh, are you going to play league left-handed? I'm going to start bowl. I'm going to bowl tomorrow night in the league. I'm going to. It's not really subbing because it's like you have to be in a roster to bowl. So. Sorry, just heard what you said as I was typing. Waiting for your first 300 left-handed. That might be a while. I did have a 200 the other day in practice, so that's going to be my first thing is a first 200 in league, and then hopefully I can shoot a 600 in league. So we'll see how that goes. We'll be televising tomorrow. I don't know. Like I said, the unfortunate thing is my tablets. I've got two different ones. They're both iPads, and last, when I was bowling league, I had no problem. Well, I should say I had no problem. I had a couple of issues every once in a while, but most of the time it wasn't an issue. And for some strange reason, the last couple of times I've tried using it, I've got no sound or no sound on my mics. So that's obviously not an ideal situation. So okay, why is okay, okay, all right, okay. What's your favorite brand of Brunswick? Mine is Radical with Hammer as close second. Love my Radical ASIMs, and Hammer Effect is currently my favorite ball. Well, I'm on the Brunswick staff. I try to go with the Brunswick stuff. So last year, I really liked the Vaporize and the Mesmerize. Um, but the new balls that they've come out with in the last couple of months, I haven't had a chance to bowl with them, so I don't know. Um, I know they've got some good products out there. I just haven't had a chance. And then I also like the Hammer stuff. That's kind of my second tier stuff that I use. But I have the ability to use all 7 brands. I don't need that many bowling balls, so it's more for me, um, you know, trying to find a couple things that I like, and I use them a lot, and that's more my style. Because of your injury, how many undrilled balls have they sent you? Well, that's kind of funny because um, at the beginning of the senior season, they'll send me stuff, and in May I contacted them. I said I'm going to be on the road, for the next couple of few months, so stop sending me stuff. So they haven't. So they stopped sending me stuff, and so I don't have any unused. And what's really the other funny part is I had a bunch of balls. I think I had a dozen bowling balls that I had undrilled, and I took them with me at the first stop, the PBA 50 store top down in Fort Myers, and I, gave them to the PBA truck for the Brunswick guys to use, and so I have no undrilled bowling balls here. It's kind of the first time that's happened in a while. Let's see. Going out PBA 50 tour next year. Well, good luck. What has been the major changes when you started bowling the 50 tour? Well, for one, my arthritis. Um, I was player of the year on the regular tour in 2009 and 10. And that summer, I was already 50. But that summer, my arthritis in my hand just got worse. And it was painful to bowl. It really was. And I had to shorten my grip and um, to make it comfortable to bowl. And it just, that was a big thing. And then I've had a couple of hernia operations since being on the 50 tour, and I had a I pulled a groin muscle. Uh, so getting old and just having these injuries, and now my shoulder and having surgery on that rotator cuff surgery, it's just one thing after another. The joys of getting older. But it's just I was fortunate to continue bowling decent on the senior tour. I was still bowling on the regular tour for most of those years, but probably really wasn't very competitive on the regular tour. So, but I also knew that those bowling with those kids would help keep me semi-sharp to bowl on the senior tour. So that kind of helped in that regard. Uh, Physical changes. Well, I guess those are physical changes, but I mean, I haven't really done a whole lot of different stuff. My game's similar. Probably lost a little bit of ball speed, like most guys. I'd say my rev rate's probably about the same. I actually, because when I changed my span, I actually spin the ball a little bit more than I used to. But my track used to be like right near my finger and thumb, and now it's way over here. So, but then again, I also fool around, learn to bowl two-handed, and then last I don't know 5 or 6 years, I got decent at that, and that's obviously a big change. I just never put the excessive amount of time that I probably needed to get really good at it. I'm not a threat to win a tournament um, two-handed. On occasion, certain lane conditions, I can do okay, but if I just bowled completely two-handed all the time, I'd probably be one of those guys not cashing most of the weeks. So, let's see where we at. Not too bad, both left-handed. Is it true you bowled 300 games in Detroit years ago, left and right-handed? That would be not true because I didn't bowl games left-handed way back when. Um, so I've thrown shots left-handed, but I never really. I think I kept score for one game before this last week and a half where I started bowling left-handed. So this is the most games I've ever bowled left-handed, and my hand's telling me about it. Did you join a league with handicap? I will be tomorrow night. Great video and sound quality. Thank you. Glad you joined a league. Are you going to stream it? I don't know that it's going to be live. It's probably going to be recorded, or and maybe what I'll do is see if I can do it on YouTube. I might do it on YouTube, but right now, Facebook's not looking like a great option, so I don't know what to say about that. Um, let's see. You might want to delete the app and reinstall it. Usually it fixes unusual issues. You're right. I've actually done that before because I had a couple of times where I couldn't even log on to get into the Facebook thing because I think it's some sort of business app or whatever it's called, and yeah, that's what I use to actually do stuff on Facebook. So I'll have to. I keep forgetting about stuff like that, and I know a little bit about computers, but I keep forgetting about stuff. Let's see. Let's see what else we got. You know you love your action twist. Well, it's funny that I drilled an axe and didn't realize how straight it went. It's amazing that the axe hooks more than a plastic ball, but it goes way straighter than the urethane ball. So I guess that might be next on somebody's chopping block. I just want to say thanks for being so inspiring. I first remember you bowling at the TSC in '89. I was 6. It's 6. Wow. Didn't didn't miss too many telecasts after that day. I want to say '89 might have been the year that I led the tournament. I think I only made the TV finals once at the tournament champions, which is pretty sad. As good of a career as I had at the tournament champions, I think I only made the show once there, and I think I led the tournament by 200 pins and averaged like 214 or something silly. It wasn't a really high average, but I bowled really well. And then on the show, pattern got changed a little bit, and Dale Ballard ran to the field and ran me over like crazy. Josh says, "Hey, WRW, hope the recovery for your shoulder is going well. I always enjoy watching your live feeds on the lanes and especially on the horseshoe courts. Did you have to go down to a 14-pounder lighter ball when bowling left-handed, or are you just using what is this? The equipment you have currently just re-drilled for left?" Yeah, that's what I did. I took a couple old balls. I had it's a Brunswick Quantum Evo, I think. Um, and then I have a spare ball, a T zone. So that, yeah, they're still 15 pounds. Maybe I should have tried 14. Don't know. I don't have any 14, so I didn't do that. Question, Dale Knight. Whoops, where'd we go? Two hands has been extremely hard, plus I'm 72. Every ball I have two hands is aggressive, maybe a less aggressive, symmetrical. Um, Even went to my spare ball. Any suggestions? Try the axe. The axe goes way straighter, and it's a reactive ball, so it'll actually pop a little bit on the back end, but it's going to go way straighter than those other balls. I was really surprised how how straight that ball. It hooks a little bit more than a plastic ball. Not a lot, but a little bit. I kept meaning to like really put some surface on. I never did. I'd put a little bit of surface on it, but I never really, you know, went hard at it to put a lot of surface on it to see what if that would make a big difference. But yeah, an axe is gonna definitely make a big difference. I mean, a lot of guys use it for a spare ball. So, do you feel you are making any progress bowling left-handed? A little bit. But I've only bowled. I think I've bowled a total of 8 games in the last week and a half, and the reason why I haven't bowled more than that is just because I'm seeing a lot of strain in my hand and stuff, and hopefully tomorrow when I bowl league, it's going to be okay. But my scores have been pretty decent. I'm actually pretty impressed about that. I wasn't really expecting to be quite that high because, like I said, I have the idea what to do. It's a matter of doing it, and then the other part of that, you got to practice. And until I practice a fair amount, I'm not going to get that good. But my plan was to practice a few games, every couple of days or whatever. But it's been a slightly bit more challenging. I've had a few things going on, and we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of enjoying it right now, and so far it's kind of fun. Let's see, where was I? Hmm. Might want to delete the. Okay. Any idea which bowling ball you drill next? No idea. Um, I they're supposed to be sending me stuff, I think, but so far I haven't got it. But honestly, I'm not really, you know, since I'm kind of a novice, bowling left-handed. I don't think I'm not gonna drill 20 bowling balls. That's just ridiculous. I'll probably, uh, I'm not even sure what else I'd want to drill right now. I like what this one ball's doing. The biggest thing is the lane conditions and how to play the lane conditions. There's so much hook on the outside. If I noticed when I got it, sometimes when I got it too far left, it overhooked and it actually, go to the nose or something, or even go Brooklyn. Sometimes I got it way out there that it actually was so far out, it actually, would hit the pocket. And then also, if I tugged it, if I tugged it a tiny bit, it would go light in the pocket. If I tugged a little bit more, then it'd start hooking all over the place. So it's kind of interesting, how the lane conditions are. And I'm not as good left-handed, so it's hard for me to kind of really tell exactly what's going on, but I can see a little bit. Um, and it's, you know, I, well, right-handed, it's like I can usually get a pretty good idea of what's going on with the lane condition and how it's, behaving and stuff, and where I try to want to play and everything. I've always felt that was one of my better things that I did when I was bowling, because you know for me it was always two things to be a good bowler: one, execution, making decent shots, repeating those shots, and two, playing the lanes properly. If you don't play the lanes properly, it's really hard to score. So, like if I went in the league and tried to play fourth arrow, I'm not going to score very well because basically they're bowling on a flat pattern right there. And so I know that there's a lot less oil on the way on the outside, and apparently here at Bolero, the lanes here, there's like it's like outside of five that's where the friction at, which is a little different than it used to be. But I'm like, well, okay, I know how to do that. It's just a matter of doing it and um, trusting it. And the thing is my eyes looking at the lane, it's different than when I look at the lane right-handed. I'm very comfortable playing outside right-handed. Left-handed, and this house shot's not going to be like playing the gutter or anything like that. But it's still, I know a lot of people, they get paranoid when when they got to get outside a second arrow, which sometimes you got to do that. Let's see. Welcome to the left. The cliff never goes away. Get it? Skits. Well, it happens on the right side too. And sometimes it actually gets worse. Because guys are bowling the same part of the lane, and it just all it does is just drive that part of the lane even more. So it and it's not universal. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and but that's a more of a part of house conditions, which most pros tend not to like because they don't like that big cliff. They don't like that big wet dry where if I miss right, it's going to go left, and if I miss left, it's going to go right. And it happens on the left side and the right side, and it's very aggravating. I'd like if I missed right that it hooked back a little bit, but it goes light. And if I tugged it a little bit, it might hold a little bit, but it would still go high. Um, So that's more the condition I'd rather see. But the average person probably wasn't like that. Averages might drop a little bit, but I think the pros would probably like that a lot more. And you see that kind of a pattern more on the tours and the PBA conditions and stuff. And they even get a lot flatter than that. Where for me, I feel like if I miss right, it's just sailing right. And if I miss left, it's going dead left. So and that has all to do with how well I throw the ball. So I don't throw the ball as well as I used to. Um, what's the biggest challenge so far for the left-hand bowling? Well, consistency. Right now, I mean, I have right now, like when I'm bowling, I have an idea. I'm looking at seven board or whatever it is, and it's like hit it. But when I first started, I was trying to play like around second arrow or whatever because I was thinking, well, that's usually kind of where the oil line's at, and the ball just hooked a lot, and 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 then I finally kind of got my speed up a little bit and I moved a little bit left and then it's like, oh, now I got to get it way out. Now I can really find that friction, and playing that miss area. That's what I talked about, playing the lane conditions properly. And there's probably a shot in around second arrow, but I'm just not quite as good to see that right now, if that makes any sense. But I can see that big hook spot playing close to first arrow. Excuse me. Playing that first arrow makes a big difference. So, hope to see record some more league videos. Definitely would be interesting to see bowl lefty. Yeah. Well, for me, it's kind of an experiment just to see, what I can do. I don't expect to be averaging 200 right away. I'm thinking if I bowled a full season and I was able to bowl 3 times a week, practice maybe 4 times a week with my knowledge of how late, how bowling works and stuff, that I could probably figure out how to average 200 on a house shot. Now, averaging 200 on a house shot is like averaging 160 or 5 or 170 on a PBA shot. So that's not even close to being good enough to compete on a PBA tournament. And I have no. I'm pretty. I think I'm pretty solid in my thinking about that. That's not going to be something I'm going to be doing right away. I was able to figure out how to do the two-handed bowling and get pretty decent at that. I even averaged over 230 one year league bowling two-handed. So, but again, a house shot, not a PBA shot. If I was bowling PBA shots, probably would have been closer to 200 average, maybe 195. So, which is still pretty good, but it's not the top of the heap kind of thing. And like I said, I definitely not if I bowled two-handed all the time, I would not be, a guy threatening to win tournaments. Now, if I bowled two-handed all the time, I would probably get much better at it. But I'm not willing to do that. I know that I'm a little better bowling one-handed, but there are times that well, one, I get frustrated about what's going on one-handed. Don't execute the way I used to. The pins aren't cooperating or whatever, and that's one of the that was one of the first reasons I started bowling two-handed. I'd get frustrated. I'm like, well, I don't want to get Superman, so let me do this. I'll try to have some fun and maybe get a little better at it, and maybe one day it'll actually make a difference. And there have been a few tournaments that it actually made a big difference where I could actually shoot some good scores, using that delivery. Next thing for you is bowling two-handed, left-handed. Yeah, I don't know about that. Let's just work with this right now. We don't have a lot of questions. I don't know. Yesterday, I was watching the USBC's video on their urethane thing. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't agree with what they're proposing. It doesn't really affect me a whole lot. If I bowl nationals, it's like I think you can use the D78 balls or whatever. But it's not life or death or anything. I don't bowl on the national tour anymore. Don't bowl on the ladies tour. I really surprised that they did it on the ladies tour, but it's probably because there's only a few ladies that do it on the ladies tour, and unfortunately, there's a lot of jealousy. I'm not just talking about ladies, the men too. It's kind of like I don't really like the urethane ball. This is kind of my thinking. I don't really like the urethane ball, but those guys are using it and they shouldn't be able to use it because I can't use it, kind of thing. And I think it's just jealousy that other people are doing something that they don't do as well at. Um, I just disagree with the notion that, well, okay, it changes lane, everything changes lane conditions. It is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it's good for one guy, it's bad for another. The end thing is typically lane conditions break down and get better for the guys that hook the ball, whether you're using urethane or whether you're using reactive. It doesn't matter. It that tends to be the case. Now it's not 100% the way, but that's just kind of the way. That's kind of the way it is. And the reason why I know that is because if that wasn't the case, guys on tour wouldn't have the super high rev rates that they do. They have the super high rev rates because it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't be doing it. Um, and and if you know how a lane breaks down, it makes kind of sense because you're playing in a certain part. Say I'm right-handed and I'm playing second arrow. These other guys are playing third arrow because they hook the ball more than I do. So I'm helping create friction, which is good for them. And the carry down is straighter to the pocket and they go around it so they can get around my carry down. Their carry down, their lay down area is creating friction to the left of where I like to lay it down. So I'm going to lose my hold area, and down the lane, their ball's going to loop in more. So they're going to have more carry down to the right of where my ball wants to be. So if I miss a little right, my ball's not going to come back. And if I tug, it's going to hook a lot. So it's like I had to be a lot more precise later on in my years, and I wasn't. Um, Now, there are times that the other lane condition worked good for me playing straighter or whatever. But for the most part, there's a reason why people hook the ball because it works better. It's not just and the guys that hook the ball a lot, they kind of need something to get them to be able to play the pattern the way it's kind of intended to play, and then they're complaining about they're playing the pattern the way it's intended, which makes no sense to me. I just don't understand that concept. It's like, and the other part of that is you shouldn't be putting a pattern down that you have to play this part of the lane. That's not a way that shouldn't be part of a design of a pattern. If anything, you should be able to put out a pattern that kind of plays the whole lane. It's not just, well, you have to play here, or if you don't play here, you're not going to be even competitive. So I just don't, I didn't, I just don't agree with that. Like I said, they got a hardness rule. All you got to do is enforce the hardness rule. That'll take care of everything. But I guess that's too simple or too complicated. I'm not sure which the case is. So looks like I got, let's see, the bowler is a residue on the lanes. I don't understand that concept or that comment. You ever bowl with a storm? I know you're a Brunswick guy. I threw storm a couple of times. For some reason, they were never interested in me being on their staff because there was a bunch of years I was not on a staff, and they didn't ever seem interested in having me on their staff. So don't know. Um, let's see. Which music you like the most besides Pink Floyd? I like rock and roll. I grew up, I graduated high school in '77, so there's a lot of music from the '70s, the '80s, the '90s, even the 2000s, and I even like some of the new rock and roll. I'm not big on the yelling and screaming as much, but a lot of there's some of the new modern rock that I still like. I'd actually like to listen to a rock and roll station that played all the rock, from the '60s to 2025, but they don't do that. It's like old classic rock, and I like listening to that because that's a lot of music I grew up with. I wasn't a real big headbanger, but I did like some. I like a little bit of um, some heavy metal stuff. Let's see. Sorry, Bo said that on TV one time and something to the effect I probably butchered it. Uh, okay, yeah. Bo said a lot of things, and I saw he shot like 790 in practice the other day, which is great for him. I don't know how old he is. He's in his 80s, so that's pretty impressive. And the way when I saw the video of him throwing the ball, he looked almost like he did, when he was on tour. How many years ago? 40 something years ago. So good for him. Do you remember the toughest house you bowled in on the PBA tour? um, it's all relative, what's tough for me isn't tough for somebody else, and kind of vice versa. But the toughest lane conditions we bowled on were, typically the U.S. Opens. For about a 15-year stretch, they just put out a flat pattern. That was it. Just a flat pattern, go bowl. Um, and I think one guy might have averaged 220 in that 15-year period, Jason Belmonte, and I'm not even sure if he did. He was really, I know he was over 220, and then he had a bad block, so it might have been like 219 or something. I was in Columbus, and I bowled in 3 different houses. Um, how many years ago that was? So that's then that's not to say house. That's just a pattern, and I think that's a bigger part of it. I do remember bowling. We bowled a senior tournament up in Long Island, and man, I had Farming. I think it was Farmingdale, New York, and man, it was like 10 pins, 10 pins, 10 pins, 10 pins. I was just like I could hardly carry. I think I made the show there once, and it's because I had one game. I had like a 279, and they had a it was a format where it was like 4 or 5 games in the advance or whatever, and I just happened to have one really good game, and made the step ladder. But it just that house, the few years that I bowled there, just God, it was just tough to carry. I remember one year I bowled in Reno, Nevada, and we were bowling at it used to be the old MGM. I'm trying to think what the name of the place is now, but it's 50 lanes, and they had the overlay, the Guardian. I was on B squad, and that was back in the days when they oiled once in the morning, and that was it. And B squad, I liked bowling on B squads back then. I could play sixth arrow. I was good at that. But this got ridiculous. They hooked so much. I couldn't even keep a plastic ball on the right side of the head pin. I think I averaged like 170 that night block. It was bad. Um, so I've had my moments of bad bowling, even when I was bowling well. It's called Spotify. Um, Not sure what that refers to, but any special memories from bowling in my home state of Connecticut? I didn't even realize you want to major here. Um, Yeah, well, we used to bowl at Windsor Locks. I enjoyed bowling there. Right across the street from the airport there in Hartford, in Windsor Locks. Bradley Bowl. Didn't I bowled okay there, and then finally I had one really good year there, and then I think I led the tournament by 400 pins, and this guy named Jimmy Keith won his only title against me. And then years later, yeah, I did manage to win the U.S. Open in Connecticut. I can't even remember what town that was in. It wasn't in Windsor Locks. I know that it was near Norwich or something like that. But I'm totally guessing. Back in 1998, and I want to say one of the blocks in that tournament we used a plastic ball. I think it was on the night block, and I want to say I averaged some ridiculous amount with a plastic ball. I shot like 300 over or something with a plastic ball, and everybody's like, "What the hell are you?" And I was like, "Man, I had a great shot." It's like just and sometimes that happens. Let's see. With the change to left-handed, are you making the same change in horseshoes? Well, horseshoes and bowling are different, so no. um, it's totally different. But in bowling, the one thing when I teach bowling, I teach get the ball in the swing and get your legs moving. It was funny because when I posted my first video, some people were saying, "Oh, my feet were going too fast," and I'm like, "Well, I'm thinking I didn't comment on it, but I'm thinking you don't coach a whole lot, do you? Because typically, I like to see fast feet. Get the ball in the swing and move. Watch the guys on tour. How many of them have slow feet? Not very many. Um, so, so what's my best score left-handed? Well, the other day I shot 212. So that's my best score left-handed. And I was in practice. League, haven't done that yet. And I haven't bowled any games in league yet. Let's see. For your rock and roll over 6 decades, the music app Spotify. Oh, I see what you're talking about. So on Spotify, just tell them you want all that stuff, and they'll actually do it. So it's not actually a channel; it's one you kind of create yourself. I get it. Yes, Bradley walked to the airport. Tums Classic. Milford. Yeah, okay, Milford. That sounds right. Belmo, slow feet. Okay, if you say so. Will you have fast feet with your left hand bowling? I think I do have fast feet. If you watch my videos, I've only got the one out there right now, but I'm going to try to post another one. But again, I had issues. I posted the first one I did on Facebook, and it just didn't. There was no sound, or would you say what? There was sound, but it was very very low. It was hard to hear me because I thought I had a microphone working, so I was way back there talking and stuff, and so it was hard to hear what I was saying. And so I actually went through the I went through the video, and it took me hours and hours and hours to figure out what I was saying and put text on that. So I actually posted that on my YouTube channel, and I unfortunately I got to do the same thing with his other video, and so it's going to take me it's going to take me a while to do that. So hopefully I'll be able to post that sometime in the near future. And then I have another video that I need to do. Well, I just did one today. But this one I just recorded. The only problem is they're playing music really really loud, so I've got to edit all the music out. So let's see. Okay. Hope my shoulder's getting better, Mr. Campbell. Thank you. It's getting a little better. It's going to be a while still. What's your thoughts on saturation of equipment on the market? All these brands and new balls feels like every month two season old equipment feels outdated. Um, Unfortunately, that's how they make their money. That's the business plan these days. It I don't, you know, I personally don't need a brand new ball every single month, and I get brand new balls every month. In fact, I get more than one normally, um, and I don't even get every single ball that's coming out. So, and I don't need that many bowling balls. I think it is what it is. You don't have to have a brand new ball every month. Everybody's like the new greatest, new best and greatest thing. Hey, it's like. Yeah, sometimes you gotta move your feet. Okay, layout for the axe. Just ordered one for 2 hands. Um, have to ask your guy who drills your balls. I'm not a layout guy. I'm not real picky on it. I all I can tell you, the shell on it, it's just gonna go way straighter. That's all I can tell you. It's gonna hook a little more than a plastic ball, and I think, I was using first. I was using a plastic ball. I had that yellow smiley ball. I actually bowled a 300 with that in league, and then I was using the axe. I don't think I've shot a 300 with the axe in league. Um, I don't think. Uh, but I had some good series with it, and it hooks just a little bit more. And then I actually got to where at the end of league last spring, I would start with the plastic ball, go to the axe because the axe is a little stronger, and then I would maybe go to like a urethane ball or the what is it, the low reactive ball. It was supposed to be like the urethane ball, the NU. I would go to that ball. Um, I wasn't in league conditions. I just didn't like the standing way left and throwing it dead right, and just wasn't very comfortable doing that. So I like to get closer to the pattern, and I could play right at second arrow with this axe and stuff. So now, and I don't have part of it is I don't have the ball speed, you know. So um, Elmo does not have slow feet, just the first step, maybe two. Oh yeah, exactly, and that's yeah. Who is your favorite doubles partner? Um, well, I unfortunately I never really had a steady doubles partner back when they had a doubles tournament way back when. Both in Leto a couple times, and then he couldn't bowl one year, and I bowled with Harry Sullins, and I broke the record for 6 games. We missed the show by like a few pins. um, and then then they'd have some other doubles tournaments, and um, I had a lot of fun bowling with Dick Allen. Um, we had the over under 50 tournament. We actually had a trios tournament. It was over 60, over 50, and an under 50 guy, and we won that tournament. And then I bowled with Dick on several of the over 50, under 50 tournaments, and I don't think we ever finished lower than second place in all the tournaments we bowled together. It just I was very impressed by how he threw the ball, and he's got like the lower one of the lower rev rates on tour, and he could still make pins fly and everything. But I'm like, after bowling with him a couple of years, I'm like, why am I trying to bowl on tour? Because I was still trying to bowl on tour at that time, and I'm like, he is just way better than I am, and you know. Fortunately, I managed to help him enough that we would, do well in the tournaments. But I had a lot of fun bowling with Dick. Are you planning to pursue the left-hand game more than just fun? Um, right now, probably just for fun. If I get really, really good at it, maybe. But I mean, I have to put a lot of time into it. It's like anything else. You got to put the time into it. You're not going to get a professional status by just bowling a few games a week. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry, that just doesn't happen. So, and I don't know that I have that much of a commitment to do that. You know, so um, it's kind of like starting from scratch, so to speak. I have a pretty good idea what to do, but it's they're still doing all this other stuff. It's one thing to have an idea of what to do. The other thing is getting your body to do it. I have a tough time getting my body to do that playing horseshoes, and I've been doing it a lot longer. And I still, my body doesn't cooperate very well playing left-handed. I'm pretty good, but I know I could do better if my body would cooperate, but it doesn't do that. So going to bowl my first PBA 50 tournament, Black Oak near Yosemite, Petraglia 46. Got any tips? Not just bowling, but road trip advice too? Get well soon. Hope to meet you on tour. Well, I don't know where you're coming from. Um, I'm thinking Black Oak, but that's kind of in the foothills of it's a casino there in California. It's 46-foot pattern, and typically it's just going to be a little more challenging. If you're a high rev guy, you probably like it. If you're a low rev guy, you might not like it so much. um, you might want to get a ball with a fair amount of surface, and maybe a ball with a little bit of surface on it, and then get something that's not so surface, because you're gonna when the lanes break down, you still want to get that ball to react right. So, and watch the guys that are playing around you. You see somebody who's scoring well, he's probably playing the lanes right. Probably also throwing the ball really well too. But and watching where they're playing, and if you hook the ball about like that, that's a good place to play. Even if you're not comfortable doing that, usually in those long patterns, they break down, and you got to play inside. So if you don't like getting left to fourth arrow, you might want to learn. It's that's something that all the guys on tour learned a long time ago. Of course, they all hook the ball a lot, and that's like their comfort zone. Getting inside the fourth, fifth, sixth arrow, they love doing that. That's part of their A game, because that's when the ball reaction is almost perfect for them. They get the ball angle and stuff into the pocket and stuff. When they're playing, swinging second and third arrow, it's like almost too much angle. Didn't realize you post the video left-handed. Got to watch that. Yeah, I've actually got it I got it on YouTube. I just posted it the other day. But it's also got text on it, so I was, helping people out, because, like I said, the volume didn't come out very well. Any tips for shot repetition? I find myself getting too careful when there's potential for a big game. That's just a mental thing. My thought process is for I really concentrate on my target, and I'm really trying to hit that target. That's really for me. Unfortunately, my body doesn't cooperate as well as it used to, so I'm kind of spraying the ball these days. Back before I was injured, um, and so it's just matter of really concentrating on that target. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Having a good follow through for me, that really kind of brings everything together. Somehow just being as consistent as you can. That whatever it is that you can do the same over and over and over, that's what's going to make you a better bowler. And really concentrating on your target, I think, is really the best thing. And for me, and the other part of that is everybody, bowls on house conditions, and they get pretty good on house conditions where you can miss a little bit right and a little bit to the left. Well, unfortunately, that teaches you it's okay to miss a little bit right, miss a little bit left. So my suggestion, when you go practice, don't play the house shot. If the house shot's around second arrow for you, play like fourth arrow. You might not score very well, but what it's going to do, it's going to make you make better shots. And that's really what it comes down to. And if you're a high rev guy and you like playing fourth arrow, get a plastic ball and play fourth arrow. Um, that way you have to make good shots. And it's not about scoring when you practice. It's about being able to make the good quality shots. When you get to the league or the tournament, that's a different thing. Now you can now play the lane condition the way it's meant to be played and take advantage of that. But I think unfortunately, most of us, and I'm I'm right in there, because I've gotten used to playing on kind of soft conditions, having a little bit of room for error, and all of a sudden I can't hit my target anymore. And that's a big part of it. We got used to being able to throw the ball to the right, a little bit to the left, and still goes to the pocket. And now you can't do that. It's like, oh my God, how do I do this? And I I, I have the same frustrations that I just don't execute the way I used to. What was your favorite title you won on the PBA tour and the PBA 50 tour? Well, I always say my first title. I mean, until you win your first title, you just, you don't know what's going to happen. And every title you ever win is always special. I don't care what I don't care if it's a local tournament or a regional tournament, senior tournament or a national tournament. I'm just, they are all special, and they make me grin from ear to ear. That's what you're always trying to do, is do well, and even if you got a lot of breaks to win it, or you just pounded everybody, it doesn't really matter. And I had a lot of good tournaments where I didn't win, and I was a little frustrated that I didn't win, but I always knew that, hey, I'm being competitive, and you know keep plugging away, and hopefully it's going to happen, and it did for the most part. Let's see. The Mount Virginia this year. Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't able to bowl, so I decided not to go up there. Um, do you coach others, like official sessions? Yes, I do. I don't get a lot of that down here where I live, but I don't really advertise it very much. Usually, when I'm traveling, I do it. I'm actually got some lessons scheduled down in Sarasota at the end of the month. What's it? 28th, whatever the Sunday is. Um, so I'll be down there um, doing got 2 sessions, and I like to keep them smaller. I don't like to have huge sessions. I'd make a lot more money doing that, but honestly, I've done that, and then I get out there and try to help people, and it's like you got 5 minutes to work with somebody, and I'm like, to me, that's just not enough time. I like to spend a little bit more time, so I'll do a 3-hour session, and I have limit to 8 people, and I try to give everybody at least 15 to 20 minutes of personal time. I like to take video of them, show them what they're doing, and kind of give them an idea of what it is I'm trying to get them to do. The biggest thing I work on is timing. I think 90% of the amateur bowlers have poor timing, where their timing's late normally. Um, and I'd say probably 90% of the professionals have good timing. And there's a few good bowlers that don't, that to me, their timing is not so good. But I like the ball getting in the swing nice and early. It makes for a quote freer swing. Um, you, you know, I'm old school. My backswing's not super high, but if I take a 4-step delivery, my second step, my ball is past my leg by about a ball, and my backswing's about shoulder height. Now these guys that have the super high backswings, their their second step, the ball is actually going to be almost shoulder high, and then their third step, the ball gets all the way to their backswing, and So I just to me it just looks so much more fluid to see that, to get that ball in the swing nice and early. I also teach that when I bowl two-handed, when I go for the two-handed guys. It's probably not quite as necessary, but to me, the earlier you get the ball in the swing, makes your feet go faster, and especially for the high rev guys, the two-handers, they need that good ball speed. So by getting the ball in the swing earlier, it helps your feet move faster, and that's naturally give you more speed. And the other thing is even the one-handers who do that, they also tend to get a little higher backswing, creates a little bit more ball speed with less effort, kind of thing. The effort, the amount of energy is probably about the same. The difference is they just get the ball in the swing earlier, and it just flows so much better. So that's one of the biggest things I like to work on. If I have somebody though, it's in one of my sessions, and I like their timing. I said, I like your time. I'll tell them. I said, I love your timing. I said, I wish I could throw the ball like that. And then I'll work on some other things like parachuting. Throwing the ball straight. Maybe learning how to do a three-step delivery where you got to get in front of the ball return. Or maybe even throwing a backup ball, especially the two-handers. And so there's a combination of a little bit stuff, and I try to give them a little bit of knowledge, and hopefully they like that, and it's going to help them get better in the future. And I've had lots of compliments on my coaching ability, but it is what it is. Let's see. Okay. There was a video where you almost left the 5-7-10 split back in the late 90s. I've actually left several 5-7-10s. In fact, I have two tournaments that I've won that left a 5-7-10 during the tournament. I didn't leave them on TV or anything, but I've left 5-7-10s, during tournaments and stuff. Just never picked one up. Several years ago, we're bowling a senior tournament up in Anderson, Indiana. Very first frame, all of a sudden, guys are screaming like crazy. What's going on? A guy picked up the 5-7-10 the very first frame of the tournament. It was pretty funny. How's left-handed bowling going? I'm a fellow lefty, and they say we have an unfair advantage. So welcome to the left side. Well, probably on house shots a little bit more. Left-handers probably have a tiny bit more of an advantage. The difference is when you go to the pros, a little bit different. Now all of a sudden the patterns are asymmetric, and they do that because there's a lot less play on the left side. The right side breaks down a little bit more, and sometimes it plays good, sometimes it doesn't play good for the left-hander. So that's a really challenging situation for the lane guys to try to figure out how to get the left side and the right side to kind of compete on a quote equal level. And it's almost impossible to do that. It really is an impossible job. But they're trying to do the best they can and trying to make it quote semi-fair for everybody. And the thing is what's fair to me is not fair to somebody else, and what's fair to them is not fair to me. So it but the thing is if you keep making a lot of good shots, you're going to tend to do better. So that's really kind of what it comes down to. So, what's better, less ball weight and more revs, or more ball weight and less revs? Um, I would say the higher revs is probably a little better these days, but I wouldn't go with too light of a ball. I know some guys are down to 14 pounds. I guess Tom Doherty uses 14 pounds, which is kind of surprising because when he uses a urethane ball, he's going fairly straight, and he still managed to rip the rack and just throws pins everywhere. So it's kind of amazing that that's actually a 14-pound ball, and it hits that well. But he's also got a really high rev rate. So, but the urethane ball's not, the angle into the pocket's not super big, but he's a great bowler, and he's done pretty well with that. My personal opinion, 15 pounds is pretty good. 16, I don't know that it's necessary. Um, I I was player of the year several times on a regular tour using 15 pounds, and I have a low rev rate, especially compared to all the other guys. So I don't know that the 16 pounds is necessary, but I guess some of these big strong guys, or I don't even, EJ might even be using 16 pounds. I don't even know, but I know that a majority of the guys are using 15 pounds even on the national tour. So, but I'm not sure you want to get down to 13 pounds. I don't think that's going to do you a whole lot of good. We got one guy who bowls in the leagues. He used to bowl the scratch leagues. I don't know if he's doing it this year or not because I haven't been there. But he's got to be about 81 or 82 now. And last year he was using like a 12-pound ball, and he's got good ball speed. I mean, he throws the ball nice. He throws the ball great. And he's got good ball speed, got a good rev rate. And it hit. But every once in a while, he had those light pocket hits or whatever, and but he knows that's going to happen. So, but he can still get the pins to fly around a little bit, and 13's probably. I don't think you want to get even much lower than 13 if you're trying to be effective for a good score, and 13's kind of light. But let's see. I use a 12-pound ball. Well, good luck. But I could never do what Norm Duke can do. Norm picked up two 16-pound balls once when doing a skills challenge. Yeah, we used to do that kind of stuff. I don't think I can do it right now. My arthritis is so bad. Yeah, that would not be a good thing. Let's see. Boy, got a few questions over here. Wow, missed all that. Do you know of any bowler who is equally good with both hands? Yeah, I know there's a couple guys. There used to be a guy, Skip Tucker, but he only bowled a part-time on tour. There was another guy from Ohio. Um, I want to say he made a show, and I know his thing was that Todd Book. He wanted to win a title both left-handed and right-handed. He never won a title. He was a good bowler though, but he threw the ball very well left-handed. Um, I do know that, but mainly he bowled right-handed. And then there's been a few other guys that were hurt. I think Robert Lawrence bowled left-handed for several years. I think he said he averaged like 238 in league one year, something like that, which is pretty impressive. Got a lot of 300s and 800s. And I know there's a bunch of other guys who've done that. Guys get hurt and like me, and then go out and start doing it left-handed or the opposite hand and stuff. So, ah. Somebody told me that the main advantage of two-handers is not the rev rate, but not using a thumb, not tearing up, and not having the tightness when the pressure mounts. Um, don't know who Tommy Johnstone is, but unless you're talking about Tommy Jones, but I don't know. I mean, I bowled two-handed, and that's definitely an advantage, not having to worry about your thumb tearing up. That I totally get. I mean, I actually got a blister on my left thumb, and I've only bowled 8 games. It's like, in fact, today when I was bowling, it started cutting open, and I've got a thing on it. So it's kind of strange that I was managing to do that. But you know, you can still throw the ball a lot of different ways that you don't intend to throw it. So, but I think that just comes around with consistency. Um, you know, I I think I was always fiddling with my thumb grip. I think a lot of guys are. That's kind of the nature of the beast. I definitely know my left-handed grip is going to need some adjustment. Um, but right now, I just haven't bowled enough to have a real good feel of what it is I want to do. Right-handed, I kind of like my grip, but I'm always fiddling with tape. That's another thing I talk about. I say you should have at least five pieces of tape in your thumb hole. If you don't, you're not being very smart. That's my opinion. Um, which is funny because my wife was a very good bowler and she didn't like using tape. She doesn't bowl much anymore, but yeah. Let's see what else we got. On a burned house shot in our 5-man league, what's an ideal surface? 1500 to blend it out. Everybody's different. Me, I like a little bit of surface, but on a house shot, I don't need surface. I do not need that. Our lanes get severely burned fast in clipped, wet, dry conditions. From what I've been told, our lanes are the high friction type of synthetic also. Um, well, the problem is on a house shot, you've already got friction, and then when guys are throwing the ball in a similar area, that just kind of magnifies that friction part, and especially when guys are throwing a ball, same zone kind of thing. That just it's just going to create that drier spot a lot more. And depending on how much oil there is in the middle and how much there, it 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 can get really bad sometimes. I know that on the national tours or on the senior tours, even on the PBA, that usually that happens a lot more when they have a lot of oil. And part of the reason is guys are using a lot of surface, and what happens is that surface just eats into the oil, and after a while, that part of the lane where guys are throwing a lot of shots, all of a sudden there's like very little oil there, so there's a lot of friction there, and then they move in a little bit, and it's like, and now the ball doesn't want to hook at all, so they tug the ball and it goes light, and that does happen. It doesn't. So it's a unfortunately a bad side effect. Do you recall how many second place finishes you have on tour? On the national tour, they had me at 47, so I got 47 wins and 47 seconds. On the senior tour, I don't know, but I'm betting that I have at least that many. I think I have at least as many second place finishes, if not more, even in the regional tournaments and the senior tournaments. And I've plenty of second place finishes. Let's see. You've been a pro since the 80s. Which decade do you think was the best for pro bowling as a whole? Um, well, I would say pro bowling in the heyday was probably in the 70s and 80s. And the reason why I say that is because of the viewership. National TV back in the 70s, basically, unless you lived in like maybe Los Angeles or New York, you kind of had three channels to watch. And one of those channels was ABC TV. And on Saturday afternoon, you had bowling, followed by Wide World of Sports. And so the ratings, the ratings were pretty good back in those days. I mean, they used to get 10 million people watching bowling every weekend. So even though I made more TV shows than anybody else, the guys that bowled in the 70s and middle half of the 80s, they had more people watching them, and I made a lot of my shows after 85. Because I made two in 83 and I made one in 85, and then after that I started making a lot of shows. Unfortunately, now you got cable, you got a few more channels to watch, a few more things, and it wasn't like, oh well, there's only three things to watch. I don't want to watch those. I'll watch bowling. Well, now you got 10 things to watch, or 20 things, or now you got 1,000 things, and now you got basically a million things to watch, actually more than that. So it's really a challenge. I don't think bowling's going to go extinct or anything like that. It's just that, to get the viewership that they had in the 70s and 80s, um, just, unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen again. So just shot my first 300 at Royal Family Bowling Center. Remember bowling there? That's pretty impressive. I could not strike there. They had string pins there, and man, they pins just laughed at me. I had trouble bowling there. The lane conditions were kind of tough, but yeah, rotor cuffs are worse. It takes too long to heal. Well, it is what it is. Hi, Walter. Who's your top three favorite bowlers old time you played against? Um, I like the bowl guys that I was able to beat. Of course, when you're bowling on the tour, all those guys are really good. So, fortunately, my record against Pete Weber was phenomenal on TV. You know, when we bowled each other in match play, we were probably pretty even. Um, I enjoy bowling against those guys. Leto, you know, Brian Boss, Parker Bone, Mike Albee, all those great bowlers. I like to bowl against them all. So, and I had a few guys that had my number on TV. I think Dave Houston was 5-0 against me on TV. So I guess it's lucky I only bowled him 5 times. All right, so we got a few more questions over here. Okay. John Van Hees has 300s with 2 hands. Yeah, I have you ever thrown a motive ball? I don't think so. And I don't, because I've been on staff with Brunswick for quite a few years, and I'm trying to. I I may have, but I don't recall. Okay, where'd I go? Where'd I go? USBC says they want bowlers to be more generalist than specialist. Why didn't they complain when you were playing at 5 all those years? um, well, I might have played 5 at times, but back then we also oiled once a day. So I might have played 5 in the morning, and at night I was playing 25. You just never saw that on TV. Um, and actually, got a bunch of guys did complain about that because I was doing it pretty well and they weren't. Question about one-handed and two-handed bowling during league. A guy was bowling league this year and intended to have 2 separate averages, one for one-handed and one for two-handed. And his average went way down, and he bowled one-handed again, and he was called a sandbagger. I think it should be 2 different averages. Yeah, it's right now, that's USB-C rule, the thing is, though, if, you know, if a guy is playing the lanes wrong, that's gonna happen too. It's, you know, left-handed, right-handed, they actually that's totally separate. Two-handed and one-handed, they actually consider it the same. And if I'm bowling two-handed, right-handed, where my dominant hand is my right hand, that's what they consider which hand you are, and they don't differentiate an average two-handed, one-handed, even though I think I bowl better one-handed than I do two-handed, but not by a lot, but it's enough. But I don't bowl, you know, I'm not going to tournaments and taking my well, it's a 220 average, so I'm still wouldn't be getting a handicap, and if it was based off of 230, I'd still go scratch. You know, I'm not. Yeah. Okay. Some leagues have your average can't be more than 5 pins less than your book average. Yeah, that's and that's necessarily leagues, and sometimes it's over a couple of year period or whatever. Tournaments and stuff. They usually go back a couple of years. So great memories as a kid coming home from the junior league on Saturday morning and watching the PBA in the afternoon. Chris and Bo were amazing. Yeah, and they were both very nice to me. Chris, for some reason, really liked me, and that kind of helps when the commentators like you. Are you allowed to use your right and left hand in a tournament, or would you have to declare which hand you were going to use before the tournament started? Well, okay. So in the PBA, you're trying to bowl the best score you can. There's no handicap. So if you happen to bowl really bad one week, you're not going to get handicap for next week. So they don't care if you bowl left-handed, right-handed. Um, one guy actually said, "Well, you can bowl with your feet," but I don't know that there's any rules about that. And so, yeah, if I want to, I can throw the ball left-handed, I can throw it right-handed, I can throw it two-handed, I can throw it between my legs, I can throw it backwards. Basically, you're trying to throw the best score you can. Now, the thing is if you start doing something and you're just bowling really, really bad, and they'll come down and say that's not being very professional. So, like right now, if I wasn't injured and I went to a tournament, I'm bowling right-handed, and I just get really frustrated. And at the end, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bowl left-handed because I'm just not having any fun. Um, but I'm only averaging like 160 or so, compared to 200 or whatever. That's a big, big, big difference. And to me, that's not quite the same thing. Whereas if I bowl two-handed in a tournament, I'm actually still semi-competitive. So as long as to me you're being competitive, I don't see an issue with it. But yeah, in a PBA competition, yeah, you don't have to declare anything about left-handed, right-handed. And I think even the USBC, like the Masters and the US Open and tournaments they run, I think you can still do that. But again, at the US Open, I think they allow you to only have 10 bowling balls. So, if you're gonna say, "Oh, I'm really good left-handed, I'm gonna, keep this ball," you better be really, really, really good. Um, well, we finally got a lot of questions in there. It went a little bit longer than I expected. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. And hopefully I can get some of these other videos posted, a little bit of me bowling left-handed, and you guys can laugh along with me or whatever. I think I have a pretty good sense of humor as far as that goes. So I got one of my new bowling shirts. This is my one of my physics equations bowling shirts, and this is obviously a Coolwick, and it's I've got like 5 new designs. You can go on Coolwick, and you can actually dig up my name, and I think I've got like a 10% discount if you use WRW10. I think you get a 10% discount using my code. But I've got a few shirts, new designs and stuff. I thought I'd go with the physics theme. So I've got a couple like this, and I've got a couple with um, nebulas and stuff, astronomy kind of stuff. So kind of is more in my theme. I've got a degree in physics and kind of like that stuff. So all right, have a great day, and I'll see you guys later.